Well, there's a classic situation. The manager came in to check the smoke alarm, and here I am in the middle of doing this bit, raving on about the heartburn regime. I shouldn't do that, you know. But common sense, which prevails over wisdom at times, you know, has to speak. You know, it's where injustice becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. So, onward and upward. Next issue. Yeah, that got me off track a bit there. That was a bust if ever there was when they came in to check the smoke alarm, and here I'm puffing away. Anyway, it's all good. I don't think he buys too much. You see, that's the thing. You know, many people don't mind we smokers, because they know that we're using it for a purpose. We're using it for better understanding. We're using it because, for some of us at least, and I'm one of them, you know, my biocomputer can function so much more effectively and more thoughtfully and more lovingly and more spiritually and more gratefully, you know, with a little of this herb. Where's the crime? Where's the crime? I don't sell it. I did once. I'll tell you a story once. Well, I grew some many years ago for the purposes of bringing on a case at the Supreme Court, which I did. That was 1975. I just got back from Mexico. It's very politicized. Anyway, you know that story. Or maybe some of you do. But in any event, what happened was I planted seeds in a friend's garden. I tended them. The plants grew quite nicely. I hadn't much idea about anything really about growing them, but they were coming along very well. And I planted 42 symbolically for every year of my life, which was curious because, you know, I guess that was the answer to all and everything. And my new email is fluiddruid42@yahoo.ca. So, you know, I've got I got hacked real bad. Lost all my connections and communications, and hey, whatever. Here, I'm still here doing it. But to get back to the point of my issue here. So what has happened is that by people lacking probity, that is, by living by their consciences, you know, something really terrible begins to happen. And people become afraid of what they've done. You know, they know they've sinned. But it gets buried deep in the unconscious. They keep pushing it down, and it's just beginning to think about it. They drink a glass of alcohol, or maybe even they smoke a joint, because, you know, there's a lot of evidence that one can escape, you know, realities. And people say, well, John, you know, you can't change the world overnight. I said, well, you know, I've been trying since I was 12, for crying out loud. and I think most children do, but, you know, they're taken away from their parents, who would certainly encourage them to work for change, and are put into institutions where I'm told today they're dumbed down. And when I see sort of the quality of the people that I was looking for support from, and I go, wow, you know, these people don't get it at all. These people have been so divorced from the forest, from the river, from the fresh air. You know, they've had their heads in a television screen, or in a, worst of all, in a television screen. I mean, television screen. Yeah, well, there we go. Anyway, I'm getting critical, and I'm not producing any really serious solutions. Kevin Annette is calling for a republic, and I'm of a similar thought form, but I believe we have to come up with a new word, and I'm not even sure democracy is the right word. I believe we should have I was going to say communism, which is distinct from communism, where, you have to work, or cooperativism. Now, I'm sure there's a whole cooperative movement. Well, just as there's a whole local casse populaire, I think they call it in French, which is whatever they call it here, and I had an account in one of those once. I should remember that now. Isn't that terrible how you lose things like that? Simple things like anyway, Van City and those places, that's not one though. Richmond, credit union, of course credit union. Well, now there we go. You see, my system of electoral reform would bring about, in time, maybe first election out, a caretaker government. A caretaker government would consist of 2 circles, and men and women, actually 4 circles, north, south, east and west. And 2 of them now are kind of unique, but I'll just deal with the 2 for the time being. So the whole thing is evolving as I put it to people and ask them where they can see improvements. I'm an eclectic. You've got a better idea than having none of the above on the ballot. See, there's even an option to that. If the government are not prepared to play ball with us, in any simple way, like putting none of the above on the ballot, and it seems they're not, because I've already been to the Supreme Court of British Columbia before, I think, Judge Brandon, who I believe was the Chief Justice, so they did pay it some attention. But dirty trick, like they sent in the mandarins, or the elected officials, in which case there's serious malfeasance there. In fact, one would question whether there's not malfeasance on the part of the Attorney General's department. So people got to start shaking a little bit in their boots if they're in that dirty tricks game, because although they suspended the what did they call them, the Vice Admiralty Colonial Court, the colonial courts of the Vice Admiral's Colonial Courts, I think it's called. Now you've got to look it up. But anyway, you'll find that was dissolved in 1971. Well, I think that was probably a job that I was about to be given, but I went a year too soon with information that I was given when I blew the whistle on the way that the Bank of Canada, the way the protocol was being followed. And of course, from that time on, it sort of tossed the ball back, so that the Crown of England, except because they were already in bed with the Americans, didn't have any oh dear, didn't have any effect on bringing Canada back to its senses about the way the business was being done here. And I think that was a part of what I was involved with, but nobody ever told me, and I guess I was unconsciously doing their job. And when I blew the whistle in '72, that was the end of my career in broadcasting.